Good morning, everybody. I bring you all warm greetings from Manipal Academy of Higher Education and wish you all a very, very happy New Year. Dr. S.K. Saidapur, keynote speaker of the day, Dr. Devidas Naik, Principal, MGM College, Professor Ravindra, Srimati Mahatma Devi, Shri Avait and Jainji, all the dignitaries of the dais, invitees, principals, staff, and students of various institutions of Udupi and neighboring districts, press and electronic media, all invitees, ladies and gentlemen. To me, it's an honor and a privilege to be part of this program to inaugurate this very, very important conclave, which is being held for the first time in this part of the state, to discuss and deliberate upon the new national education policy which was declared open in 2020. I thank Dr. Devidas Naik, Principal, MGM College, for inviting me to this program, and I'm so very happy to be present here today on this very important event. It's an important event because I am personally extremely passionate about the new national education policy. It's been a wonderful document, and I consider 29th July 20 as a landmark day in India, when Government of India announced the new national education policy, which is a revolutionary document, which perhaps one of the best education policies in the world. This policy is very comprehensive, very inclusive, and path-breaking, and I consider that if implemented in the spirit of the document, will usher in a qualitative change in all spheres of education in the country. What is unique about this policy is the unprecedented process of consultation involving over 2.2 lakh suggestions received from over 2.5 lakh panchayats, 6,500 blocks, 676 districts, and thousands of stakeholders. Dr. Kasturi Rangan Committee, which has drafted this policy, has done a commendable job. After a nationwide deliberations and consultation with all stakeholders and the experts, the draft policy to begin with was unveiled in 2019 as draft NEP 19. This was a much more voluminous, much more detailed document, and this was placed in public domain for comments from experts and stakeholders. And the final document, after a year-long deliberation, was announced by Government of India, Minister of Education, on 29th of July 20. And I consider this truly a remarkable day and a very memorable day for all of us. From the time this policy has been announced, there has been a very enthusiastic discussion and debates across the length and breadth of the country by academicians and administrators and all the stakeholders. And for all this has been received with a great sense of anticipation and appreciation. Now the academic world eagerly awaits the implementation plan for NEP 20. What is unique about this policy is that it brings about path-breaking transformational reforms across the entire spectrum of educational process, from school education to higher education to teacher education to professional education to vocational education and adult education, and also has something to say about lifelong learning. The other reforms that the policy envisages to bring about is extensive use of technology in education, bring in research focus in education, promotion of Indian languages and culture, bringing in structural reforms in administration of education. The policy majorly seeks to address the challenges of access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability in the present education system of our country. I think this is truly remarkable that it is addressing to make such a wholesome change, a welcome change in the way education is being delivered and being accepted in this country. As we all know, the main focus and the key thrust areas of NEP 20 is to enhance school enrollment to 100% by the year 2030 and to increase the gross enrollment ratio of higher education to 50% from the current 26.5% by 2035. It also has a vision to improve the creating and critical thinking, innovation, research capabilities of our youth so that they contribute effectively to the nation's socio-economic development. It has a vision to create morally, ethically, and intellectually strong youth so that they lead the country to the next level of growth and development. The policy exclusively deals with school education after the preamble, exclusively deals with school education, higher education, and I think these two are the most important focus areas of the national education policy. With regard to the school education policy, the NEP 20 aims at transforming the school academic structure totally, dividing the school education into 4 stages from the existing system. Stage 1, early childhood care and education, concentrating on the holistic development of the child prior to age 6. It's very clearly known by scientists and medical professionals that 85% of the brain's development occurs before the age of 6 years. And these 3 years of pre-primary and class 1 and 2 should form the bedrock of the future generation of Indian students and Indian population. The stage 2 is the 3 years of primary stage between the ages of 8 and 10, between classes 3 and 5. Stage 3 is a middle stage from 6 to 8, age group of 11 to 13 years of age, and stage 4 is 4 years of secondary stage across 9th class to 12th class, between the age group of 14 to 17. The significant emphasis on school education in all 4 stages will concentrate on local and Indian traditions, critical thinking, ethical reasoning, logical reasoning, computational thinking and digital literacy, improving the scientific temper and the communication skills. More importantly, in the early stages of stage 1 and 2, the policy envisages delivery of education in mother tongue and regional languages. I think it's extremely significant. It's been proved beyond that the early education is delivered in the mother tongue and the regional language, the uptake and the proficiency of these children increases tremendously. Therefore, in addition to all these important aspects of school education, this particular school education policy looks at making these children ready to accept higher education in a far more receptive, far more prepared, digitally competent to enhance technology or to accept technology in higher education system. I think it's very, very important, and this school education also looks at reforms in evaluation, reforms in regulation and accreditation, and vocational education at school level. Something very important in this is that the policy speaks about accreditation even at school education level. I think it's very, very important. This will bring about serious attempts at improving quality and standardization of education across the country. With regard to higher education, the vision of NEP in higher education is to align with global sustainable development plans. So this is a global vision that all countries have agreed to adhere to the global sustainable development plan, and therefore the higher education will align itself towards achieving global sustainable development plan. The The policy speaks of integrated yet flexible approach to higher education. It's been seen that over a period of time, the fragmentation of higher education system with unitary disciplines being predominantly present in most of the institutions. This policy now speaks of multidisciplinary approach to higher education. It also speaks about integrating academics and research and focusing on high quality research. The policy speaks of facilitating transformation in the system of education, more so at the way in which the education is being administered in the country, and also has a singular focus about facilitating national development as a corollary to a quality of education that it is talking about. And the one very important aspect which the national education policy is speaking about in higher education is to incorporate social sciences, liberal arts, and multidisciplinary elements in higher education, including professional education. I think this is very, very important. For too long, the professional education, technical education, medical education has remained a unitary, unidisciplinary approach. And therefore, the holistic development of the child or a student has been often been ignored. I think to bring in social sciences, liberal arts, and other multidisciplinary elements will surely bring about a far more rounded individual as the student finishes his education. And it also speaks about liberating higher education institutions from strict regulatory control and speaks of light but tight regulations. And more importantly, the entire policy speaks about radically reorganizing the higher education administrative system. And now the entire university system country is envisaged to change towards three categories of universities: research-intensive universities, which will predominantly concentrate on research and academics; teaching-intensive universities, which will predominantly concentrate on teaching; and later, autonomous degree-granting universities. The important aspect is that the policy speaks about doing away with the system of affiliated colleges or affiliating universities, which have grown into unwieldy, hundreds of colleges being affiliated to one single university. This often is leading towards very disproportionate, disorganized way of delivery of higher education. I think this is a very welcome step as we are looking at. It also gives them a lot of autonomy. And the policy also speaks about all universities being multidisciplinary. Here again I would endorse the views of Dr. Devidas Naik when he says that there will be implementational problems. Here we know that there are thousands and thousands of unidisciplinary institutions, science colleges, arts colleges, law colleges, teacher education, and teachers training institutions, engineering colleges, medical colleges, nursing colleges, all in unitary disciplines spread across the country. How are we going to bring them all into the three major university system is really going to be a serious implementation problem. Notwithstanding all these things, there is always the thought behind this NEP is really, really most appreciable. And with regard to professional education, the policy speaks about offering holistic multidisciplinary programs. There's a separate chapter on the national education policy on catalyzing academic research, improving quality of research, and integrating academics and research. Without doubt, academics and research go hand in hand, and all research must lead to improvement in the way we lead our life. The creation of new knowledge must augment the way the society uses this knowledge for betterment of mankind, and therefore the increasing focus on research is very, very welcome. And world over, highest quality of research is always carried out in academic institutions. There is a separate chapter which deals with internationalization. This is the first time that higher education in India being looked at with a prism of internationalization. The policy speaks of allowing top Indian universities to open up campuses abroad. The policy speaks on inward and outward mobility of students. making India a preferred destination for higher education for students from abroad. Policy speaks of internationalization in terms of collaborative research, collaborative publications, and more importantly, it also speaks of allowing foreign universities to set up campuses in India, either singly or in collaboration with existing universities. So this is a point which is debatable. However, the intentions of the policy are very, very clear that it wants to make Indian education competitive at a global level. Another important aspect which Dr. Devidas Naik touched about is about the multiple entry and multiple exit, especially in the degree programs. Policy speaks about increasing the duration of the degree programs to 4 years with exit options at year 1, 2 and 3 with certificate, diploma, degree and a degree in research at end of 4 years. That also speaks of reducing the postgraduate programs to 2 years, to 1 year for all those students who have completed a 4-year degree program, and also speaks on a revolutionary manner about allowing students with good distinction at the 4-year degree level to get into the PhD programs directly. And it has already mentioned about doing away with the MPhil. All these things is extremely revolutionary. It's happening across the world in many leading universities, and which has led to distinctly qualitative improvement. And also what it does is it offers research as a career option to our younger people. See, often it has been seen only as an educational qualification leading towards employment. I think this mindset has to change. Employment is one issue. Self-employment is another issue. Therefore, the policy also speaks of integrating vocational education at school and higher education level. Third important education is entrepreneurship, that we should become, other than being a job seeker, an individual should look at a job provider. And the fourth option is purely concentrating on research as a career option. Therefore, this national education policy is definitely holistic in that regard. The other important aspect that it is speaking about to bring in more flexibility and to allow people to complete education in their own timelines is the thinking about beginning an academic credit or an academic credit banking. That means somebody who's done 1 year could actually place his credits in an academic bank and perhaps discontinue for a year, join back with the same credit to another institution and complete this program. So this is offering the flexibility to the student to take the credit which he has already earned and use it for future, for higher qualification or even changing in his discipline as he goes forward to acquire higher qualification. The other important focus of national education policy has been in increasing adoption of technology. I think technology is racing ahead, and it's important for us to keep pace with that, and in fact we need to be a step ahead. Therefore, technologies like Internet of Things, machine learning, data analytics, and various other advanced technologies will be a very important component of higher education as we go forward. And online education and blended modes of learning are going to be a reality in the next 5 years. And perhaps augmenting the existing purely campus-based program, allowing flexibility, allowing people who do not have time to attend the campus-based programs a chance to acquire higher education policies with either online education or in a blended mode of learning. Then also the policy also speaks about equity and inclusion in higher education. Often in our country we have seen that education, especially professional education, has been in the hands of people who are able to pay their money or high fees that are available because the publicly funded institutions are limited. More and more privately funded institutions which charge higher amount of fees are a reality. Therefore, the policy speaks of equity and inclusion in higher education so that any meritorious student should be able to get a need-blind admission to any institution of his choice. as we go forward. And more importantly, totally looks at revamping regulations with the setting up of National Higher Education Commission of India with 4 distinct verticals, which will concentrate upon National Higher Education Research Council, National Accreditation Council, Higher Education Grants Commission, and General Education Commission, which will be the standard setting body for various programs as we see. Policy speaks of doing away with myriad of regulatory bodies and amalgamating all regulatory bodies and bringing their function into one vertical of becoming professional standard setting bodies. So it's been a very, very important and very, very creative and very, very progressive document that we received as on the July 29th of 2020. Overall, the new education policy is a remarkable effort in bringing Indian education system at par with global standards and also be competitive at global level. Success of the policy will usually depend on the time-bound implementation and the wholehearted participation of all stakeholders. I underline the word, the wholehearted participation of all stakeholders. Merely the government's intention to implement perhaps will not be good enough. All of us, academicians, students, parents, the society, all of us need to be actively involved in the process of implementation so that the new education policy becomes a huge success. And I'm sure with the committed efforts from all stakeholders, we'll be able to fulfill the true spirit of National Education Policy 20 and take Indian education system globally to the next level and be competitive with the global universal education system and help realize India's dream of being a developed country by the end of this decade. With this, I am extremely happy and privileged to inaugurate this conclave, and I wish the conclave all the success, and I wish all the participants a very, very happy deliberations with your interactions with all the experts who are present here to present their viewpoints with regard to NEP, and I'm sure soon enough we'll have an implementation plan which will be drawn out by the Government of India for adoption and for implementation in a time-bound fashion. We at MAHE, we have already started this exercise. Some of these policies has already been implemented at MAHE from this academic year itself, and we have drawn up a very elaborate plan as to completely look at totally implementing the new national education policy in its letter and spirit as we go forward. Once again, I wish this conclave all the very best, and thanks Dr. Devidas Naik for inviting me to be in this program, to be with you all today, and to share my views and to receive your views on the new national education policy. Thank you all very much. Jai Hind.